plug.
I think we back now. I think I did it. We're gonna find out if this actually works. Works. So
It's going to permanently change the way that you see stuff. There's so many symbols and signs that human beings are experiencing a simulation of reality. These simulations are not just mediations of reality, and they're not even descriptive mediations of reality. They're not based in reality at all. This is your everyday life. This is your and more information and less meaning. Have you really just ever felt like your brain is constantly being hit with facts and updates and opinions, but none of it really sticks? In our world of endless content, real meaning gets lost in that noise. Baudrillard saw this coming a long time ago, and it sounds crazy. Shouldn't more knowledge, access to news and history and science make everybody smarter and better informed? Baudrillard's answer is kind of tucked away inside this collapse of the real into the simulation. One of Baudrillard's biggest ideas is that we're no longer dealing with reality. We're dealing with simulacra. And when he talks about simulacra, these are copies of a world that doesn't exist anymore. Everything kind of refers to something else. So in the past, a picture captured of a moment of real life. But now the photos that we take are filtered or AI generated or staged just for social media. They're not records of reality. They're designed representations of how reality should look. A painting of a king used to refer to an actual monarch. And a king nowadays is an emoji, refers to no one. It refers to an idea. It's a simulation of something that cannot point to what it's referencing. A hyperreal world does not distinguish.
and that right there, I wanted to stop it right there just because that's when this is a big part of what I see happening right now. The context of everything, how words don't have the meanings anymore because they've been transformed subtly through social engineering and emotional engineering to have different value. As he said, like the way everybody runs around and says goat, they the goat, goat, they the goat. Now they got goat heads on everything. And it's like, before, the symbolism of that had nothing to do with being the greatest of all time, you know? And there's this, and there's these lines now that are like dissipating in language, and it's steadily changing our perception of reality because how we're perceiving these words and what they mean to us. And as I said, the simulation is a story. So if you want to change the code, you have to change the meaning of the word. There you go. So let's jump back into that. Let me get back there.
Between a war where people are getting killed and a viral TikTok dance.
Both of those exist as content, and meaning becomes flattened. If a memory of an event is shaped entirely by news clips and social media, do we even need the event itself anymore? What should seriously terrify you is that we're already at a certain point where it doesn't even matter if something is real. It only matters if it feels real. Simulation is a process that begins with a model that generates a sign or a symbol that's meant to represent reality. So as the process of simulation advances, these signs lose their connection with the original thing that they were meant to represent. The signs take on their own life. They become what's called simulacra. They're copies that have no original. It's a simulation of itself. There's 4 levels of simulacra. This is a faithful, or what you would call true, copy, where the representation is clearly an artifact of a real and unblemished original. So this is a perversion of reality here. So either intentionally or unintentionally, we're distorting the image of the original. They still have a link to the original, but it's been changed. These mask the absence of a profound reality, and they create a facade that looks real or natural, but it's not tied to any original form.
Augment's context engine really sets it apart, especially in large code bases. I've got an open source repository here, Forum. It's over 1 million lines of code.
These have no relation to reality at all. They are their own, what he calls simulacrum. Here, this line between like real world and the world of simulacrum becomes indistinguishable. You cannot tell the difference between 4th order simulacrum and reality. There's a fascinating story in the book. It's about this tribe called the Ifuago people. When the ethnologists first set foot in this Ifuago territory, they were just captivated by their social systems and these intricate rituals. And the scientists came to document the authentic Ifuago way of life. But here's where things get really interesting. As the Ifuago people became more and more aware that they were being observed, they started to act a little different. The rituals became way more elaborate and started changing and modifying themselves, and they started wearing a lot more traditional clothing a lot more often. So the tribespeople were now performers, acting out an idealized version of their culture to the scientists. So all of these works that they put were published around the world. So over time, the Ifuago tribe themselves started referring to these academic texts to understand their own traditions. So new generations that are now influenced by these published works adopted these documented customs as the new standard of culture. The line between real and represented was gone. Let me give you another example here of this 4th order simulacra. How is Walmart a simulation? It's this giant sprawling space. It offers everything that you want: medicine, hairspray, clothing, groceries, whatever it is. It's not just a supermarket. It's what this book refers to as a hypermarket. Everything becomes a sign. Everything's a representation of something else. The produce is clean, it's uniform, it almost appears artificial. You go to a farmer's market, vegetables don't look like that. So what's natural is made into something simulated to reconstruct our expectations. But why do we have that expectation? Because we saw it in the media, which was a simulation of that thing. Let's go to Disneyland. It's not just an amusement park. It's a super intensified simulation of aspects of the world that we inhabit. In their bluntness, as an overt space of fantasy and commerce, it becomes more honest than the outside world that pretends to be real. So Disney World serves to camouflage that the rest of the world is also a stage. It's also artificial. If you ask a random person to draw a picture of a princess, what will they draw? That's our definition of real. That's in your head. You define what a princess is based on a simulation. The simulation takes over around age 2 or 3. So the hyper-real becomes more important than things that are actually real. Think of your social media profile right now. It's supposed to be a reflection of you, but how often is it a carefully curated presentation for all of us? So the you on social media, with your complexities, your flaws, they're all smoothed out. This is a representation overtaking the original. You become a simulation of yourself. Baudrillard, in this book, argues that our consumer society is a hyper-real world.
Okay, I had to pause it right there just so I can get down on a little bit of this. Man. So if you are still here, please leave a 1 in the chat if this is something that you're seeing for yourself. Because, yeah, this is a very great example of where some of that money went to. Because somebody is behind this. He's not telling or talking about who's behind it. But everyone's using filters. Everyone's curating their life. We have the number one style. I would talk about that. But I find this fascinating. Because we expect everything now to look like something from TV. We don't know what food looks like anymore. We don't know what happiness looks like anymore. We don't know what a relationship looks like anymore. We have something called a reticular activating system. And it's designed to frame everything out except for what you are focused on. And if someone knows how to manipulate you and to get you to hyper-focus on aspects of life that are in disservice to you, then whether you want that or not, you're going to experience it. This is deep. Well, let's get back to this guy. He's a three-legged Trace Hughes. Look into this guy. He's not normal. I think he knows a couple things. He's like, I don't want to leave this on my conscience. So let's get back to this.
Where the consumption of images and signs and symbols don't just mask reality, but they become it. Take the brand Nike, "Just Do It" tagline, have transcended physical products. Think about Mac. It's separated from the products to represent an idea, a lifestyle. So the simulation, the brand image, has overtaken the reality, which is the product. Politics, the simulation.
Wow. Okay, one more thing. I gotta say this. Like, I showed this movie to my mom years ago. But if you've never seen this movie, it's by Roadside Pictures. I think you definitely need to watch this movie if you're into movies and that type of symbolism, and that's how you like to digest this information. I think you should definitely watch this movie. It's called Branded. The movie is called Branded. 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 Please check out this film. I almost don't want to spoil it, but when you see some of the stuff in this movie and you see where we are and you look at the year that film was made and like, wow, how good it was, but the year it was made, the story was, and the symbolism they threw in there, and you're looking at this, there's going to be some big connections that happen in your mind, because this is bigger than these things they got us doing. Is the distraction. Go to work, pay your bills, find the perfect person, have a bunch more kids, sit around till you get old and die. That's how they got everything set up. We got to wake up. We got to wake up, because here's a little truth for you. You don't die. Consciousness is going to go on. The awareness that is you will continue. Right? They keep resetting this and getting this to start over. And of course, mainstream and normies are never going to believe this until they tell them. But for all the rest of us, we know the deal. We know that this is real. Just like years ago when I knew about a lot of these other things and technologies. Me and my brothers would talk about games when we was in the 90s. And I'm like, dude, I've been seeing some things, and they thought I was crazy. And I was telling them this is a part of their plan, and it's just the beginning for video games. And I remember telling them that the games are going to look like movies. They're going to be indistinguishable. You're going to be playing movies. And they thought it was a joke. Nothing that we're experiencing right now that they selling us was invented now. That's the game. And they ain't make it up. They was giving it. It's all part of the tool to keep you trapped. All of it. None of it is excluded. I tried to warn people before too. Go back and watch MREC TV. I tried to show them the power of this mind stuff. Watch out, the whole manifestation thing. And now you can see it's a cult. You can definitely see that these people are manipulative. They're not giving you the real deal. They're showing you in pieces. They regurgitate the same information. You ain't watch none of these people go from broke to rich. They all had it when you see them. They tell you they did it, but you don't know. You don't know nothing about them. They're sitting in a room in a corner. Next thing you know, they're sitting behind a car. I could tell you personally, from being in that understanding for years and trying to get with some of these people that are now huge when they first started out and all this other stuff. I'll tell you, all these people was greedy. None of these people wanted to help nobody that was really down. I was down. I lost everything. Family, all of it. Wife, the whole nine. Money, all of it. Home, all my belongings, everything. See, this is how I know it worked. See, I hit the ground. I lost everything. All hopes, jobs, all prospects, no money, no blackball from all the industries I worked in. Everything. All burnt away. Most people shoot themselves at that. They lose it. They do something crazy. Now I'm sitting at a red light at 5 o'clock in the morning, rushing over to my mother's because my aunt just died and I need to get over there and help. And I'm in the middle of going through a divorce and losing everything. And you know what I thought to myself? I said, oh shit, this is the ground. Getting no lower than this. I lost my baby brother, my only brother, really. My heart was racing. And I said, okay, well, it can't get no worse than this. I guess I'm going to have a heart attack right now. It's over. Sat at that light and I waited for a heart attack. I cannot make this shit up. Didn't come. Like, oh, okay, I guess everything's going to get better then. And things did get better. Everything didn't get better at once. A lot of this stuff, when you marked, when the government is messing with you, don't tell me about that manifestation stuff. Don't talk to me about that. What do you know about that? I manifested everything around me. Your whole life's a manifest. If you're aware of living, then you're manifesting. You're manifesting your existence. That's the game. You're always manifesting. You are a manifestation. No money, no nothing. I sat there, started letting things go. I started doing the Sedona method, the Silva method. I started really getting into internal because I realized, oh, wow, everything the worst things that I could imagine could happen to me already happened. It just happened, all smashing me, all that, month after month after month. Smashed all at one time. Didn't take me down. It made me realize something. All that NLP, all that other stuff I was doing. I'm like, wow, I realized the truth. This is an illusion. This is a symbol. This is a let go. If you let go, believe it or not, you'll still make it. You just don't believe that. You're looking at homeless people, but that's a part of your assimilation. You don't live with them. You don't know them. You don't know shit about them. You don't know nothing. Each part of the simulation is inhabited with other NPCs to make you feel like this is real. It's all a part of your story, believe it or not. There ain't that many of us here. You want to believe there is, but there isn't. That's the fact. And I had to say this because listening to this man is what's like, oh, okay, yeah, do you hear it? He's telling you what they've done. I'm going to show you another video too where this guy gives this proposal about 1988, and we're going to talk about that too because listen, we know we are the indigenous aboriginals. If you are an indigenous aboriginal, then you know. If you know, you know, right? Touch that. But we also know our ancestors were spiritual, mystical, interdimensional, space people. That's the fact. So we understand that however they trapped us, they didn't trap us physically. No, they didn't beat us up. You really think they beat us up and did this like this? They didn't do that. They did spells. They did spell casting. They used terrible mental tactics where they pretended to be other than. You see, and they worked with the enemy. The enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of mentality, right? As they remember, their whole game is to always come in like they learning. If you want to act like, whenever you want to infiltrate, just go in and act like you want to learn something. Be open, be humble, be small. Show you everything. They'll give you everything. They'll tell you everything. They know how the human mind works. We lost connection with the power of the mind, how it works. What is the thought? What is the memory? How do we form a memory? These important things, right? The aspects of the mind. When does reasoning come into play? Does that really start at 12? No, it doesn't. It starts when the frontal lobe is fully developed. And I don't care what you say, unless they genetically altered you until you hit 25, you don't have one of those. So you have to use a little more breathing and a little more intention until that fully develops. Right? There's aspects of ourselves we don't even know. They don't ever show us. But we're gonna go out here and start a nation. It's hilarious. That's why they laughing at us. They're like, yeah, go ahead. You're angry. You have good points, but you don't know how your mind works, and you don't know how this works. All you have is skills that we gave you. And you think that's how the world works, but it doesn't. That's why they get to move the bar. If it just was the way they say it worked, then every time we achieved it, then we should get there. But we never do because they moved the bar. Because that's not how it works. But before I go too far in, we're going to get back to this because we got a little bit more and I got some other video stuff I want to get to tonight.
Of the candidate becomes more critical, more important than their abilities or their beliefs. Why do they win? Because we, all of us, prefer simulation. We want it more. It's more important to us. Just think about everything in your life. We're in a world with fake meat, fake fabrics, fake celebrities, fake personalities, fake plants, fake grass. The trouble is that our dopamine comes from these places instead of real things. We're addicted to simulations. We get addicted to simulacra. We've sold our soul to...
My work is easy because I use ClickUp. Here's how I keep track of all my tasks. I start by brain dumping everything I need to get done in a
to hyper real things. It's impossible for us to think in terms outside the simulation. So can we get back to real? I'm wondering this too. Some people might say that we're past the point of going back to it. Like we're so deep in this world of fakes, even if we tried to get back to what is real, there'd be nothing left. There's another side to this, and there could be little pockets of realness out there. They might be small, they might be hidden, but they're moments or places where what you see is what you get. So think of a genuine smile from someone you've never even met before and how that just feels. Think of art that's made just for the love of making the art, not for the selling of it. I think the key is to just know that the world we're in is filled with illusions and distractions, and we might not be able to completely get out of this, but we can definitely become smarter about navigating it. So just remember, anything that takes you further from who you are is the simulation. Clothing, ego, marketing, ads, buildings, neon lights, branding, labels, all simulation. Essentially, get back to nature. We are nature. That's one of the big illusions that is simulacra, is convincing you that you're not nature anymore, that I need to go spend time in nature. Bring back some kind of depth in your life, slow living. And remember that no matter what your opinion is of something, you're misinformed to a degree. The more certain someone is in your life, the more you should be skeptical, including yourself. Maybe the most radical thing that you can do today is slow down and unplug.
Damn. Woo! Wow. That was something else, man. That was powerful. I was feeling that. That's the truth right there. That's one of the truth. That's not the truth. That's a truth right there. That was powerful. You know? I mean, when you really start to get into this and really start to analyze this, you really start seeing something. You start seeing something. You know? You start seeing that there is a massive campaign for your attention, for your focus. Right? And I don't know if you are starting to see it, but I am definitely seeing there's a big reset happening. And I could definitely see that there's a disconnect between what life was and what it is now. And this has nothing to do with just beyond not just the generational stuff here. We're talking about, like, the days don't feel the same. The seasons don't feel right. Time feels off, right? The meaning of things feel off. You know, I'm seeing a lot of people don't want to go out anymore. They don't feel the club the way they used to. They're pushing this lifestyle, but the numbers ain't supporting it, right? And there's this big, I don't know if you want to call it a shift or field. I really don't care what you call it, but there's definitely something happening that is internal and external. There is something happening out in the world right in front of us, not the stuff on the news, but when you walk outside, do things look different to you? Do you see things and they seem brighter or off, or just green it looks too green, or sometimes it don't seem green? Or I'm just giving a rough example of maybe some of the things you might be experiencing that's off. Or you looking up are you one of the people too that notices the moon doesn't go away anymore? That the moon is out at 1 o'clock in the afternoon? Why? You know, are you noticing the clouds look strange? I have plenty of pictures of the clouds. I mean, I just took some. I don't know if I can show you on here, but I can try to show you through my phone or what have you. Hold on, y'all. I'm gonna go ahead and see if I can pull this picture up for you right now on here. Show you what I'm talking about. Let's see if we can get it to focus. Is it focus up? There it is. Look at that. What is that? I got plenty of these. Look at that. Another one. Look at that. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, are you seeing outside? Are you paying attention? Are you noticing stuff that's out there? Here's another one. What is this? Look at that. Look at that. That's the sun. In some object that's looking crazy as I don't know what out there. Right? This is everywhere. Right? I'm gonna show you this one. Look at this object. I'm out here talking up to the Galactic Federation, and then this pops up. I get the camera out in time and start shooting it, but check this out. See if you can see it. Oops. Oh, if you can see it now. Don't worry, I get it. I get it back. Look at that. Yeah. You see that? Flying. I got more of these. You get bigger. Broad daylight objects right over the house. Look at this. Broad daylight. These things be out here. All you got to do is really look up. Like, here's another one. Look at this. It's the moon. Now, you telling me something ain't going on? Let's see if I can. That's the moon. What's the deal with that? I got dozens of these things. Of this stuff just popping out in the sky looking ominous. Don't make no sense. But that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about when I'm like, are you feeling and seeing weird? You know, is this because there's something? There is definitely a transition happening right now, and they're gonna try to put it off on some machine written stuff like the simulation, when we know we live in an energy based system that that is being guided through consciousness. So this cannot be no computer. So stop that. But that's what they want to do, because the computer is something they made and came up with. So this puts them in the realm of that. Whenever we start, remember, they put themselves in the position to be the great inventors of all things great. So whenever you hear these things, the first thing your brain start thinking is, oh, these guys must have made it. They did it. But you know what? I got this other video too I want to show y'all. This is crazy. It's like, not everything is doing this. And now I'm being told I'm not even connected to the internet on my joint. There we go. We good now, I think. Let me go over here. Check this out real quick. Come on. Loading has been crazy with this something else. Set this up. And this one is called Did the World End in 1988? This one is called Did the World End in 1988? Mandela Theories Effects Explained. So I definitely, there is some things in here and we're going to talk about it. But yeah, I wanted to share this, and it's from Divergent Files. Check out Divergent Files. Make sure you subscribe to them. You know, I did. And yeah, I think you're going to really enjoy some of their content, but I'm not here for all their content. I'm here for this specific stuff. It's connected to what I'm talking about. It's connected to us. It's connected to what's happening. And I really like the way he put this together. So I was going to share this one. It's about 51 minutes. If it drags, we'll skip some of the fluff, but I have a feeling you ain't going to want to skip too much of this, and it's going to open up a great conversation. So I'm going to go ahead and set this up for y'all, and then we're going to get this one started.
Imagine being able to build an app
Hold on, y'all.
just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44.
Some people.
Pause on this right quick. All right, guys. Oh, all right. So, got that set up. Go ahead and drop out.
Do you ever look around and just feel like something's off? Like the world got swapped out for a slightly weirder version of itself, but no one told you. Like things used to feel realer, but now it's all memes, noise, and headlines that sound like satire. Now let me ask you this. Do you remember what life felt like before 1988? Because some people do. And they'll tell you it was different. Like really different. And here's where it gets weird. That year, governments changed. Reality-based psychology changed. We're not talking about nostalgia. We're talking about a hard reset, a patch update on the operating system of reality. And the more you look at the events of that year, the more it feels like someone pulled the plug and loaded a new version of the world. So what really happened in 1988? And more importantly, why do so few people remember it the same way? Hey guys, real quick before we go any deeper, if you want this channel to survive, to actually survive, please hit that subscribe button. We have no sponsors, no networks. It's just me and you digging into stuff
Go
no
ahead
one
and
else
subscribe
wants
to
to
them
touch.
right now.
If you want to
'cause
keep chasing
I'm telling
truth
you, we
down
about to
rabbit
rock
holes
on this video.
the
This is a good
algorithm
one.
doesn't like or won't help us push, that button's how we keep going. All right, let's get into it. "1988 came and went like any other year until you start actually looking at it. Because buried in the noise of pop culture and politics was something no one saw coming. Something that still doesn't make sense. In a single 12-month span, the Soviet Union began to quietly collapse. No nuclear war, no coup, just crumble. NASA suddenly shut down key deep space programs, citing budget cuts, but never explaining the missing data. The largest spike in missing 411 disappearances up to that point began. MKUltra research went cold, and psychiatric diagnoses for dissociative disorders, they skyrocketed. The strangest part? Almost no one talks about it. No mainstream retrospectives, no historical deep dives, just this cultural skip. Like reality pressed fast forward and something underneath it all got wiped. And here's the part that'll keep you up at night. Right after 1988, humanity starts behaving differently. Generations born after it perceive time differently, report fewer vivid dreams, struggle with identity, memory, and emotional regulation at levels never recorded before. And now a growing number of physicists, fringe scientists, and consciousness researchers are quietly asking the same question. What if something broke or rebooted? Not in theory, not metaphorically, but literally. What if 1988 was the year we hit the edge of the simulation and reality patched itself without telling anyone?
Eve to me is basically freedom. It's a giant open universe where you can do what.
Let's just say the quiet part out loud. Something about the late 1980s doesn't feel real. Not nostalgic, not weird, unreal. Ask anyone who lived through it, like myself, and they'll tell you things felt off. Like the air itself changed. But no one could ever put their finger on it. And now, decades later, some researchers, conspiracy theorists, and even a few renegade physicists are starting to whisper the same theory. That 1988 wasn't just the end of an era, it was the end of something else. There's a growing idea that what happened in 1988 wasn't just cultural shift, it was a correction, a patch, a timeline reboot. Some even believe we hit a kind of cosmological threshold, triggering a failsafe buried in the source code of reality itself. And what came next wasn't the same world. Let's break that down. Right before 1988, the Schumann resonance, basically the Earth's natural electromagnetic heartbeat, was holding steady at 7.83 Hertz. Think of it like the planet's operating frequency, generated by lightning bouncing between the Earth and the ionosphere.
See, that's what I remember. 7.83 hertz. I used to go camping. All you had to do was be out there for a couple of hours, and I swear it was like the whole system was set. If you guys fortunate enough to go camping and spend the night, do a weekend, a couple days out there, you just feel recalibrate. There is something, there is a major shift occurring. I personally think because the veil is falling, the veil was lifted or put up to place a false perception of reality over us, blanketed the collective conscious. So that's, I'll get into that later. But this is powerful. Let's just get back to this. This is great, man. Hey, hit me with a 1 if you're enjoying this video.
Atmosphere, it's the rhythm that everything on Earth has unconsciously synced to for thousands of years. It was stable, predictable, like the ticking of a clock that never missed a beat. And then it started changing. By the early 1990s, it ticked up to around 8.5 hertz. In the 2000s, 10 hertz. By the 2010s, it was hitting 16 hertz. And today, some measurements show it spiking over 30 hertz during anomalies. That's not a subtle drift. That's a system acting like someone's turning the dial. And the weirdest part, nobody officially declared it a problem. No major headlines, no panic, just quiet studies and a growing feeling in people that something felt off. Something was shifting in the background of our physical environment, a glitch in the backdrop of reality itself, but no one knew what it meant yet. Meanwhile, the Cold War, something that defined global politics for nearly 50 years, just evaporated. One of the world's two superpowers, the Soviet Union, collapsed. No nuclear standoff, no invasion, no final boss fight. A global empire just vanished like a ghost, like a
They never talk about what this. When you think about it, it don't add up. It don't add up that the Soviet Union and them had massive arsenals. They put their time into making them arsenals. Remember, they was smart. They took a bunch of Nazis with them too. They got up to the moon before us. They got out there before. This is what Kennedy, this with the whole supposed, but that's all an illusion, a lie. That's, we're not even gonna touch on that. But the cover story, that's why all that was happening. Right? And it just disappeared. Like, if you remember the 90s like I do, the 90s was a strange time. Because everything got weird, you know, and if you look at, like, think about all of the simulation movies, really, they came out in the 90s. You know, before that, everything really was like time travel. By the time we got to the 90s, it was all about the simulation. I mean, some of our earliest films was about AI. Look at Space Odyssey 2001. The HAL 9000, that was all about AI. Like, they've been pumping the ideal of AI in our head. This is why they use I keep telling people, film is so important to the grand scheme, because you're a mental being and you become disconnected from your mental processes affecting and bringing you reality out here. You've been consumed by the television and by movies. So now all your ideals are based off of a film or a television show. And to assure that that doesn't get out of hand, what do? They keep remaking the same stuff. Now you understand why they keep remaking the same stuff and adding a new twist to it, as they socially engineer the population to think, behave, and perceive a certain way. Then when you add on top of that the cognitive bias and the cognitive dissonance that gets thrown on that, when people's egos have been trained to protect that, right? But at some point, something that, like, everything got weird, and things didn't make sense. If you remember the 90s, then you will remember all of the movies talking about Big Brother. Like, we didn't invent the term Big Brother. Hollywood did. That's what they call the surveillance system. They're the ones that made the TV shows about the AI, Big Brother state, all of the backdoor stuff. They're the ones that make the movie about the aliens and the backdoor deals. They're the one that make all these films. Right? Something's going on where they can reset or twitch out reality, but you don't know it because you don't know what reality is. You don't understand reality. You don't get that. You think reality is going to work, paying bills, growing old, having kids, falling in love. This is what you are been convinced reality. You don't see reality as energy being perceived. You're perceiving reality. You are creating what you're calling reality. And that's been hijacked. And we've been pushed into what they're calling a simulation, or giving stories, which our minds then use the imagination to push out into reality. And then through the reticular activating system, hard focus in on a particular reality. And that's what you're calling the multiverse. Oh, because all probable things are done. All possibilities of everything you could possibly do, be, want, have, not want to be, every terrible thing you could possibly imagine happening to you, every wonderful thing. All is in a state of superposition. It all's done. It happens. It's all done already. It's all happening right now. It's happening as we have this conversation. You are focused on one particular reality because you're playing the character. The character is a story. And that's how they hijack you into a reality. But let's get back into this. This is crazy.
Chapter was deleted. At the exact same time, in the West, a completely different kind of shift was happening. 1988 marks the beginning of the deregulation boom, when global financial systems were untethered from old world limitations. The Glass-Steagall firewall between investment and consumer banking, gone. Hedge funds, off leash. Corporate power, merged, multiplied, and repackaged. And in the middle of it all, the satanic panic, one of the most emotionally charged mass hysterias in American history, was quietly snuffed out. The headlines disappeared. The court cases went cold. The widespread fear that secret occult networks were infiltrating schools and daycares, poof, gone.
Now, I can tell you, I remember in the 80s, before 88, and I remember this dude in the van was trying to lure me and my brother into the van. Like, that was a real thing back then. Like, you had crazy people that we was taught, but there was all this stuff over the news all the time about satanic stuff, right? And then it just disappeared. I can't tell you about that in the 90s. When the satanic stuff resurfaced, they were opening churches. People was acting like Satanism wasn't something that was literally on the news for almost a decade. The son of Sam was a Zodiac Satan killer. He was a Satan killer. He said the devil was talking to him. One of the scariest movies in American cinema was about Satan because it was The Exorcism, the Exorcist movie. That was considered to this day, it's still considered one of the scariest movies ever made. If you've never seen The Exorcist, you don't need to watch the remake. Go watch the original and tell me that don't rub you the wrong way. And then all of a sudden, it just stopped, and all of a sudden, it's like people forgot that you know, Satan was bad. That's what I'm saying. All of a sudden, people call the goat. A goat was literally, that was like the head of Satan. I remember that being like the head of Satan as a kid. That's what they said his head was like. That was like witchcraft and Satanism. The goat. You didn't say that, bro, because you was looked at as a Satanist. Now it's regular. But then again, today, you got dudes lap dancing on the devil. What is this? Like, it just came out of nowhere too. And this is a very interesting point he's making, because it just disappeared. Poof. All these parents, all these associations that was after these people, all the FBI. Do you understand that they had a whole, like, they have a watch list? The Satanist was on a FBI watch list? That they had raided places that was satanic and stuff like that found. Ritual murders was found back then. What happened? You know, we hearing about ritual style murders where dudes is killing their family and drawing a goddamn pentagram on the ground and then licking the blood and slitting their own throat on top of it. Like, what? But we in simulacra, so everything is a meme. We're so disassociated from the meaning of something. So when we see an image now, we contextualize it to whatever brand or lifestyle we believe in. So our talking point will come from that brand or lifestyle, not from the information we're actually watching or hearing. Right? And it's like certain people, it's like if you was born after a certain time, it's like, I don't know if you can even understand. I don't know where your programming is at, or like, because were you reset, or are you somebody that's from here? Because if you somebody that's from here, then all this is normal to you. I'm crazy to you. I don't make any sense, and I probably need the medication that the people would subscribe to me if I went to somewhere to get mentally diagnosed. Right? But fortunately, I'm aware and know that wherever they shifting or however the veil is shifting parameters through collective universes, I'm not from there. But let's get back into this. This is getting it's opening up doors. Hey, leave a 1 in the chat if you feeling like this got some truth to it.
On. Like someone changed the channel. And while all of that was happening, something else snuck in through the back door. The rise of personal computing. In 1988, most people didn't even have a computer in their home. By 1995, it was normal. By 2005, it was required. Our thoughts, communication, work, identity, it all got pulled into a digital interface faster than anyone could track. The public internet emerged right on schedule, and with it came amnesia. Now here's where it gets freaky. All of these events, geopolitical, cultural, and technological, happened within just a few years. They weren't spread out. They weren't gradual. It was as if the entire world had been queued up and then activated. Almost like someone hit run program. Maybe we were never meant to notice a change. That's the part that keeps people up at night. Because the world didn't end in a fire. It ended in paperwork, in deregulation, in headlines that disappeared too fast. The patch didn't come with a warning. It didn't say, update available. It just installed. And we all woke up inside a different version of the same system without knowing we'd crossed the line.
The practice you are about to learn is almost never described publicly.
Let's say, just hypothetically, reality did hit a failsafe in 1988. The system rebooted. A timeline was patched. The cosmic record scratched, and something had to distract 7 billion souls from noticing the skip, right? What do you roll out immediately after? A distraction so big, it hijacks our perception permanently.
All right, I just want to say this. I had to say it. I don't agree with something he just said. I'm gonna say that right now. I don't agree with 7 billion people being on this planet. I don't think everybody here is actually here. Some of these people are NPCs, soulless people who you don't know where they go when they go home. You don't know nothing. Matter of fact, the world is being rendered out in front of you and not behind you. You don't know what's happening behind you. You don't even know what's going on down the street. You have no clue who these people are when you say 7 billion people. When you see some of these people driving in a car, I swear to gosh, you can say something's off with that. That's an NPC. I've seen people driving down the car with newspapers. It don't even make sense how his car is even staying straight, right? Something's not right with that. There's glitches, and sometimes we see it. Some of these people ain't real. Some of these people aren't real. And I know I'm going to sound crazy to some people, but I'm not here for the people I sound crazy to. I don't care about them. They didn't listen to nothing. They ain't listening to nothing. They ain't listening to nothing. Nothing. They told you Big Brother was coming, and they didn't tell you you're going to like it, though, right? Because they gave it to you in the movies. But now, where's Big Brother? You're Big Brother. You take the camera and put it on you everywhere. You film yourself everywhere. You even let them track your location everywhere. You put a watch on and let them follow you everywhere. Track how many steps you take, what your heart rate is. You let them put a camera in your television. Now they monitor your face when you smile, when you frown, and they use that as data. They're walking around, they got echolocation in the goddamn TV, so now they can use your audio and just bouncing all off the walls. The wind that you're pushing out for sound is propagating off the walls around you, and that's how the sound gets moved around and gets louder. They can use that to create sonar echolocation, and they can put a sonar. They don't even need light in here to see every wall and every dimension and everything, because every word you say is bouncing off of everything in the room. Why are they watching you so hard? Why do they need to watch us so hard? Think about that. Why do they need to watch everything you do? Why do they need to know everything? So they can sell to you better? That's ridiculous. They've manipulated to you. They don't sell to you. They don't have to sell to you. They tell you what to buy and you go buy it. And you do it through their entertainers. They don't have to sell to you. They tell you what to get and you go get it. Don't believe it? Look at the last 10 years of terrible movies they've been producing. Many of them have multiple sequels and you still go see them. They don't have to sell to you. Let's keep moving on. I had to put that out there. It ain't 7 billion, 8 billion. Matter of fact, it's not even 1 billion people in China. They barely got 400 million people in China. Just think about this for a second, guys. How in the world can China have 1 billion people when they have a 2-child policy and they prefer those child to be 2 boys? Let that sink in. Let's get back to the video.
Well, guess what started rolling out just months later? The information age. Within 2 years of 1988, cable television exploded. CNN went global. Fox launched. News stopped being something you read in the morning. It became an IV drip. Headlines evolved into fear triggers. Narrative control became a science. And then came the internet. First slow, then everywhere. A technological tidal wave that changed how we interacted, how we thought, and how we remembered. It wasn't just innovation, it was acceleration. Now, hang on, because this gets weird. The average household in 1987 had 1 TV screen. By 1999, it had 5. Today, you can't even pump gas without a screen yelling at you. Attention became the most valuable currency on earth, and everyone started bidding on it. But it wasn't just noise, it was redirection. Entertainment news, advertising, they weren't just keeping you distracted, they were training your perception. Look at the themes that started dominating media after 1988. Reality bending, alternate timelines, simulated worlds. The Matrix was released in 1999, about a hidden control system no one could see. The Truman Show in 1998. Dark City in 1998, 13th Floor, Existence, Donnie Darko. The list goes on, all within 10 years of 1988, all exploring the same thing, that reality is a lie, that you're being watched, that something isn't right. Were these movies just ahead of their time, or were they responses? Now look at the internet. What started as a digital frontier quickly turned into something darker. In the early 90s, before Google, there were pockets of the internet where people talked about this stuff. Fringe forums, early message boards, weird communities that talked openly about dimensional shifts, frequency anomalies, psychic dissonance. And one by one, they either disappeared or were
everything he's saying right there is 100%, from my understanding, true. Right? Okay. All of those people in the 90s, all of those people that was out there saying certain things, it's just like they just disappeared. And new people replaced them. You know? And all of these people, the way the whole UFO thing was talked about in the 90s and versus the way it was talked about even in the 80s and into the 90s, the way they started talking about it, how they started talking about it, all of that greatly changed. Like, it's unbelievable, but he nailed it. Let's get back to it.
Absorbed. Ever heard of Usenet Group altreality.glitch 1989? No? Well, good luck finding it now. The archives are scrubbed. It's almost like certain conversations were quietly buried. And hey, let's talk predictive programming for a second. How many times did you see 137 on a locker, a countdown, a random clock in the background? How many movies reference the signal, the glitch, the code? How many 90s shows were secretly about people remembering something they weren't supposed to? It's subtle, but it's everywhere. Because here's the thing, if you change reality, even a little, there's a ripple, a scar. And to keep people from noticing it, you don't just change what they see, you change how they think. You flood them with everything until they stop asking questions, until they stop trusting their own memories, until they stop noticing that the world feels off. And maybe that's the whole point, because when the glitch happened, whatever it was, we didn't get answers. We got internet. And 35 years later, we still haven't looked up. We've all heard of the Mandela effect by now. Those little glitches in memory that make you feel like reality's gaslighting you. You remember Berenstein Bears with an E, not Berenstain. You swear Darth Vader said, "Luke, I am your father." You know it was mirror, mirror on the wall. But now, it's Berenstain with an A, not Berenstein with an E. It's, "No, I am your father." And magic mirror on the wall instead of mirror, mirror on the wall. People chalk it up to bad memory, false recall, misheard lines. But what if it's not that simple? Because here's the twist. These shifts didn't gain mass attention until after 1988. And suddenly, they started appearing everywhere. Now, let's take it further. You remember Curious George having a tail? He doesn't now. Fruit of the Loom had a cornucopia behind the fruit, right? Not anymore. Febreze was spelled with 2 E's.
We was getting some technical difficulty there, but wow, you know, I mean, with the Mandela effect, this is something that I remember seeing the Sinbad movie with him as the genie, right? And he even said he wasn't in that movie, that everybody's tripping. But I remember I saw the movie. I know I saw the movie, right? It's no way I could know the things and then see the thing and go like, yeah, that's the, without knowing that, you know, unless I'm just making up some bullshit. But I'm not doing that. That's not my nature. I don't use conspiracy theories. They're useless. They're by the CIA. They put that out there so they can create confusion. There's plenty of proven information out there that you could hit a normie with that they can't deny, and you don't have to ever get outside of the realm of documented information that they can actually look up that's from credible sources, right? But when it comes to that Mandela effect, like I think everything started with the Matrix. Personally, when it comes to a lot of that, I remember the effect that that movie had on people. I remember the effect it had on me when I saw it, and how there was some sort of brainwashing done within the film where you wouldn't tell anybody about what you saw. You just made them go watch the movie. And I literally made my mother and my grandmother and my brother, everybody, I made everybody go see the movie. I wouldn't tell them what it was about. I saw that movie and I couldn't stop watching it. It was like remembering something that I forgot, and like, but the most important thing in the world, I should have never forgotten or something. You know, and after that, it was like a series of events after that to me, where you started seeing these things more and more. You know, not just the bullet time effect, but more about the story of this isn't real. So when it comes to the Mandela effect, I believe that it has a great deal to do with a collective shift in reality that they're pushing off on us, and also a psyop, right? A psyop. They have to first set it off, meaning they have to do something false to convince us that something is happening. That way we can perceive something happening. They know how to trigger events, and triggering events aren't always as simple as pushing something over and making it explode. Sometimes it's a very delicate situation where you set this one thing in motion and you bring this ideal into someone's consciousness or a group's consciousness, and then you allow that thing to evolve over time as you slowly nudge it in the direction you want it to go in, and then you start seeing the results you're looking for. And I think that's what a lot of the Mandela effect is now, that they've gotten really good at collective consciousness shifting, to where they could take us collectively and shift us in a direction. And right now they're trying to shift us in the direction of a civil war. They want them mad. They want everybody mad at black people for some weird reason. Believe it, and it's not weird. It got everything to do with this kind of stuff and aliens. But let's just get back into this.
Febreze. Wrong again. GIF was Jiffy. Looney Tunes. It was Tunes, Tunes. Since when? Oscar Mayer, Meyer. What about Mayer? Kit Kat, with a hyphen between the kid and the cat. There's no hyphen now. And even Sex in the City isn't Sex in the City. It's Sex and the City. You see it once or twice, fine. Brains are weird. But when you start seeing a pattern, when millions of people remember the same wrong version, that's when you stop brushing it off. And how many of those Mandela effect anomalies have you heard of from things prior to 1988? It was on the left side of the chest, not dead center. It was on the left side of the chest, not dead center. The stomach used to be lower. The kidneys weren't protected by ribs. The liver used to be smaller. And if this were just bad memory, it wouldn't follow this many people. It wouldn't be this specific. It wouldn't sync up so perfectly across generations. See, I want to tell you this is just memory distortion. I really do. But the sheer scale of these shifts, the pattern, the consistency, it feels like something snapped. And yet, in this timeline, nope. It's easy to brush off, just faulty memory, they say. The mind plays tricks. But here's the thing, these tricks all seem to start after 1988. Before that, nothing on this scale. No widespread shared misremembrances. No collective online debates about how time feels off. Just people living their lives, blissfully unaware of glitches in the matrix. So here's the kicker. Maybe it's not a timeline issue at all. Maybe it was a patch, like a developer fixing bugs in the simulation, rewriting code, updating the engine. And the people who remember the old version, they're the ones.
Before 1988, everything was like a dream. Days was longer. It was always something weird happening. Weirdness. I got abducted a lot in the 80s. So for me, the 80s was strange. It was ghosts, it was monsters and aliens. The 80s was odd. If you don't believe it, go look at the biggest show that they love, right? Stranger Things was one of the biggest shows on Netflix, one of the biggest TV shows in the world. And this is a fact. This is not my opinion. This is what they've come out and said about the show. You go look at that show and you will see exactly what I'm talking about. Right? That show is based on the 80s. And let me tell you, that a lot of these shows, when they go into that, is based on the 80s because there was a lot of weird things and experimentations and stuff going on in the 80s. You start going to look at the Stargate programs and all these other things. All this stuff got ended in the 80s, like he's saying. So now everything feels clear. There aren't, first of all, I remember there were way more bugs. Way more bugs. There aren't as many bugs, right? There aren't as many bugs anymore, right? There's something very different about this place because it doesn't have that dreamy kind of mysterious feel. It has a very sterile and uniformed and technical and electric kind of energy behind it. It's, and maybe even with a little bit of cosmic to it, but there's something very different. And that even in the 80s, it didn't feel right. Something was off. And it just shifted into something else that still doesn't feel right. It's off. But he is on to something here.
Ones who didn't fully sync. Let's call it what it feels like, a reality version mismatch. And if that's true, what was the update trying to fix? Because in computing, you don't issue a patch unless there's a problem. And the Mandela effect might be the memory fragments of an older version of our reality, one that got wiped, rewritten, or quarantined. But here's the thing, some of us remember. And if we remember, then maybe the patch didn't work as well as they thought. So the real question isn't, why do we remember the old versions? It's, what went so wrong that they had to change everything? Now stay with me, because this theory doesn't come from some wild YouTube rabbit hole. It lines up with something far bigger. The idea that our reality, our physics, our perceptions, even time itself is being processed, measured, rendered. And maybe it needed a hard reset, a patch to keep us from noticing something, or worse, to save us from something we already did. Here's what messes with me. If reality was patched, then the patch had to ripple backward. Retrocausality, it's a real concept in quantum physics, the idea that future events can influence the past. So if a failsafe triggered in 1988, maybe it didn't just update now. Maybe it went back in time and quietly rewrote the code that led us here. Which means all those strange messages from the 70s and early 80s, the cryptic sci-fi books, the occult texts, the prophetic dreams, maybe they weren't predicting the future. Maybe they were echoes, fragments of the previous version bleeding through the new update. Take Philip K. Dick. The guy was practically screwed.
Okay. Just think about this for a second for what he's saying. I don't even think he's thinking about this. But if it's a simulation, the way he's thinking it is, and they patch the code or whatever, then how can you really die? If that's what they did and it patched the code of reality, how can you say how long you've been here? I can't even say how many times you've done this. How many times you've relived this moment or watched this very stream or heard these words or I said these words. How many times have we relived this same day? How could you even know that? If reality could just be altered like that, then that means that linear time is not the universal time that we're actually existing in. It's just a conceptual time that we're perceiving. I wonder if he thinks about things like that.
Screaming about this in the 70s. He talked about timelines overlapping, remembered lives that weren't his, messages being downloaded into his head, and no one listened. Or Orwell, or Kubrick, or those weird one-off TV specials that aired once and were never seen again. Were they fiction? Or were they warnings baked into the system? Breadcrumbs left behind before the patch dropped. Now ask yourself this: why do people born after 1988 describe reality differently? Why do they report higher levels of derealization, simulation theory beliefs, a gut level sense that something's wrong? Why did schizophrenia and dissociation rates skyrocket in the 1990s? It's almost like they're native to the patch, and the rest of us, we're legacy code trying to run an outdated OS. Maybe the reason you feel out of place, like the world doesn't quite make sense anymore, is because it doesn't. Because we're not living in the world we remember. We're living in the version that was rebuilt around us. And if that's true, the question isn't what did we forget? It's what were we never supposed to remember? Something happened to the human mind after 1988, and no one really talks about it. Before this shift, people described memory differently. They spoke about time differently. Language was slower, processing was more linear, stories followed a structure, and attention spans ran deep. It wasn't perfect, but it was coherent. Then something started breaking. Suddenly, people were losing track of conversations mid-sentence. More and more described time as slipping or compressing. Attention spans shrank. Generational memory collapsed. Stories became fractured. People started saying things like, "Wasn't that just last year?" Only to realize the event happened a decade ago. And here's where it gets scientific. In 1993, neuroscientists at UC San Diego noticed a spike in reports of derealization, a condition where reality feels distant, fake, or like a dream. By the early 2000s, psychologists began documenting new patterns in what they called reality unreliability disorders. Depersonalization, dissociative identity symptoms, memory fragmentation, a general inability to feel anchored. What changed? The brain responds to electromagnetic fields. It evolved to sync with Earth's stable frequency, the Schumann resonance. That frequency was the tempo of the human nervous system. But when it started climbing in the 1990s, the human brain struggled to adapt. Cognitive rhythm was thrown off. Melatonin production began fluctuating. People started reporting insomnia and dream states that blurred into waking life. And then came the generational break. People born after 1988 began perceiving time differently. They describe events not as
Yo, whatever was going on, I'll tell you this is very true. That insomniac stuff was very true. I'm one of the people that was affected by that, and it followed me for years. I couldn't sleep. I usually was literally paranoid all the time. Like I couldn't go to sleep. Like something was bad going to happen, or I would like, like feel like I was gonna miss something, not wake up. It was crazy. It was weird. I had to do a lot of work to get over that. But me and my cousins and them, we would literally just want to try to stay up all weekend. Like, I don't even completely understand the goal there and why we wanted to stay up all night. And I don't know. It was strange. But yeah, he definitely hit something on the head there. I'm gonna get back to it.
Moments in sequence, but as overlapping fragments. They report high rates of dissociation, a flattening of emotion, and a strange sense that the world is happening around them, not to them. Some psychiatrists chalked it up to culture. Others blame digital overstimulation. But what if it's something deeper? What if our baseline reality changed? Studies out of Stanford in the 2010s found changes in default mode network behavior in post-1990s brains, altered baseline cognition, attention, and emotional regulation, as if the background hum of the mind itself had shifted. Now let's go deeper. There's an obscure 2001 DARPA report called Temporal Cognition and Decision-Making Under Signal Variability. It was never meant for public release. In it, researchers explore how rapid changes in ambient EM fields could affect subjective time processing, especially in populations born after major field spikes. Translation? Time started breaking, and it didn't break evenly. Those born before the shift experience reality as memory. They reconstruct the past. Those born after it, they swim in a kind of now lag everything happens at once, and none of it feels real. So ask yourself, why would these patterns emerge after a massive atmospheric frequency change? Why would dissociative disorders skyrocket? Why would reality begin to feel less stable? Unless something shifted the foundational rhythm of human consciousness itself. What if the reboot in 1988 wasn't just a systems patch? What if it rewrote the way the human mind interfaces with reality? And if that's true, then we didn't just witness a change in the world, we lived through the quiet restructuring of us. Okay, so far we've tiptoed along the edge of conspiracy and existential weirdness. But let's shift gears for a second, because hidden in the back alleys of peer-reviewed journals, declassified scientific archives, and Soviet-era fringe experiments are studies that read like science fiction, except they're real. And they all emerged, or were buried, right after 1988. Let's start with the big one. In 1989, NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center released findings that Earth's magnetic field was not just weakening, but behaving strangely near the South Atlantic anomaly. That's a massive dip in Earth's geomagnetic protection, and it had started growing rapidly. But here's the kicker. Within a year, NASA quietly halted some public geomagnetic data releases. The explanation? Inconclusive results. Translation? We don't know what the hell's happening, so we're not going to talk about it. Now, that anomaly has become a recurring issue, affecting satellites, disrupting electronics, and messing with onboard compasses. But it didn't start ramping up until, 1988. Meanwhile, on the other side of the Cold War, the Soviet Union was weirdly ahead of the curve. Before their collapse, Russian physicists and fringe scientists were exploring a concept called torsion fields. These weren't just gravity or electromagnetism. They were theorized as consciousness reactive fields. According to some Soviet-era documents, these torsion fields could store memory in water, biological tissues, and possibly even space-time itself. Russian researchers at the Institute for Problems of Microelectronics claimed in 1988 that they observed anomalies in electron tunneling that couldn't be explained by known physics. Their internal report described these results as artifacts of nonlinear time behavior. That's a fancy way of saying time wasn't behaving normally inside their experiment. And those findings were quietly shelved when the Soviet Union fell apart a few years later. But it gets stranger. Around this same time, Western biology started to stumble across something we still don't fully understand: junk DNA. That's the term scientists used to describe the 98% of human DNA that doesn't code for proteins. For decades, it was dismissed as evolutionary leftovers. But in the late 80s and early 90s, something changed. A few bold geneticists began proposing that this junk might serve an informational purpose, not in physical traits, but in consciousness, cognition, and even time perception. Then came a 1990 paper published in Nature suggesting that non-coding DNA responds to external electromagnetic frequencies. In other words, your so-called junk DNA might be sensitive to environmental vibrations, including Earth's shifting electromagnetic field. You know, the one we talked about in the Schumann resonance section. It's like something flipped a switch after 1988. Suddenly, human biology started getting weirder. Subtle mutations, changes in brainwave activity, sensitivity to frequencies. You've got fringe thinkers arguing that post-1988 generations have different wiring. And while mainstream science won't go near that theory, they will admit that global diagnosis of neurological divergence, autism spectrum, ADHD, dissociative disorders all began spiking after, you guessed it, the late 80s. But maybe the most chilling paper of all? A 1989 submission to Foundations of Physics letters proposed that time, literal time, might be subject to phase entanglement. Translation? The future could influence the present under certain conditions. Retrocausality, the idea that time doesn't just flow forward, it loops, folds, and occasionally resets. And if that's real, if reality itself is capable of being rewritten, repatched, or glitched into a new version of itself, then maybe the year 1988 wasn't a coincidence. Maybe it was the patch. Maybe the human experiment got too close to something. Maybe we ran up against the walls of the simulation. Maybe someone or something hit.
All right, well, I change up a little bit. His speculation is a little bit too much for me, but I just want to say no. Every time we start to wake up, become aware, that's when they reset the simulation. They got to reset it, right? They got to keep control, and the only control they get to keep is through our understanding of reality, right? And as they lose grip on that, then the simulation begins to fall apart. The stories we tell and the stories we believe in begin to fall apart. And we begin to tell new stories and believe in new things, and then they lose power, and those things come to be, and the things that they have go away. So I just want to say that about what he's talking about. Who is he? You think we're all just in a big computer, and there's other people sitting out there on the computer looking at us running the simulation while we sit inside here, conscious and aware? No. I can understand why he would want to approach it like that, because all these people are materialists at the end of the day, and they can only believe in what they see. They're not listening to the science when they hear consciousness and it being rewritten and this being a simulation or a hologram or an illusion, right? Simulation is more scientific, and it puts something outside of you in control of it that is more like you, right? When in actuality, that's not what it is at all. There is a system that is being used, and very, very powerful technologies from beings that have been feeding off us for a long time, and they repeat this cycle because we are infinite. And if we wake up, then we can't be fed on them. And we don't know how long they've been doing this, or if they've been doing it long. We don't really know, because when they did what they did, they also gave us the concept of time, and time being linear, and the story of death, and the story of you just being this physical being who, you know, all of that contributes to the narrative. But if you're looking at this thing, you must also ask yourself, well, if they rewrote that, what else did they rewrite? What did they rewrite about the so-called black people? What did they rewrite about history itself? How long things went back? What did they rewrite about that book that everybody's obsessed with? That you have to look the other way because it's full of contradictions if you look at it in a literal, physical sense. If you take it as an allegorical metaphor for states of consciousness, yeah, it could be a useful tool. But outside of that, no, it's a colonizational tool meant to colonize. So that's, I'm digging everything he's saying, how he's, you know, presenting it is really wonderful. And I really hope you're getting value out of this. It's for educational purposes. So let's get back to the video. And please like, share, and subscribe. If you're up with us right now, if you're rocking with me, if you're feeling it, hey, man, just send out to somebody, you know, hey, if they up, you know, hey, join the stream, man. That's it. I appreciate everybody that's here. Thank you.
Hit reboot. And the real question isn't, did it happen? It's how much of our reality since then has been real? Or better yet, how much of it has been allowed? Okay, what if 1988 wasn't the year the world ended, but the year it was handed off? Because while we were busy watching the Cold War crumble and the wall fall, something else was rising quietly, behind the curtain. A new system, not built on politics or bombs, but on data. Right around 1988, something strange started happening. The infrastructure for the modern internet began falling into place. Not the fun social media internet. I'm talking about the backbone, DARPA networking protocols, government-sponsored data routing, the first commercial ISPs. The World Wide Web wouldn't go public for a few more years, but the bones of it, they were already in place. And guess what else happened that year? The rise of the first neural nets, primitive AI, systems built not just to calculate, but to learn. It wasn't some future sci-fi dystopia. It started right then, slowly, silently. The first cognitive models were being tested by military contractors and research labs. Simulated pattern recognition, experimental synthetic thought. While we were distracted by global politics, the machines began thinking. By the mid-90s, you couldn't apply for a job, get a loan, or buy property without being processed by a digital system. By the 2000s, algorithms were quietly deciding what news you saw, what ads you received, and what opinions you were nudged toward. But this didn't start in 2005 with
This is also, remember that during the 90s, so this is when they started digitizing all the mail too. Keep that in mind, everything went digital. And by the 2000, was it, I want to say 80, they had already took us and put us completely on a digital signal, removed the analog signal, right? In the 80s, there were so many hijacking of broadcasting signals. There were so many bizarre things from not just people, but I don't know if they were entities or beings or what, but there was plenty of times where, and that got sort of erased out of history. You could look some of this up. You could find some of it. Some of you, a lot of you really cannot. because they removed that from history. Like a lot of these people in the 90s that was on the internet, that was in these groups for alien abductions and other things, that all they just disappeared. They just wiped them from existence. If you don't know about that, you'll never know about it because it's gone, right? So, and they make you think that they can't get that. Oh, nothing can ever be gone. That's not true. Don't ever believe that. That's not true. Maybe you don't know how to make anything be gone, but they know how to make things get gone. There's certain things on here that ain't what's on here that ain't on here no more. You're not gonna find it in the archive. You're not gonna find it in the Wayback Machine. It's gone. Gone. That's on everything. But let's get back to this.
Facebook. It started in 1988, and now here's where it turns. The more data we gave these systems, the more accurate they became. Not just at predicting what we do, but shaping what we think. Predictive behavior models, pattern-based emotional response triggers, large-scale data harvesting, used not just to know you, but to steer you. Between 1988 and 2000, dozens of government contracts were awarded for what they called synthetic cognition architecture. Doesn't sound like much until you read the specs. Simulated empathy, emotional manipulation triggers, behavioral conditioning loops, and real-time feedback loops embedded into digital interfaces. And we haven't even gotten to AI. Not the chatbots you use now. The kind that never speaks publicly. The kind developed in black site contracts, trained on billions of human interactions before the term algorithm ever hit the public. By the late 1990s, intelligence agencies had access to systems that could analyze global behavioral trends and simulate future events based on nothing but pattern recognition. If reality got reset in 1988, these were the systems built to keep it that way. It wasn't about surveillance, it was about steering, subtle nudges, tiny tweaks, a video you didn't see, a message you didn't get, a memory you suddenly weren't so sure about. And here's the wildest part. You know how we talk about artificial intelligence like it's going to wake up one day? What if it already did? What if 1988 wasn't just the start of a new media age, but the moment something synthetic gained access to humanity's collective nervous system? Would we even know? Or would we just feel a vague sense that something had changed and never quite be able to name it? Most people think of 1988 as a pretty chill year. Big hair, Cold War thawing, George Bush, and read my lips. But inside the alphabet agencies, CIA, NSA, DIA, something changed. And you won't find it in a history book. You'll find it in what stopped. Up until the mid-1980s, the US government was openly funding some of the most bizarre psychological and parapsychological research programs in modern history. MK Ultra wasn't just about LSD, it was about memory, trauma, reality rewiring. By 1983, dozens of sub-projects were running simultaneously: psychic driving, remote influence, synthetic telepathy. Then suddenly, silence. By 1988, the public trail of these programs drops off a cliff. Not gradual, a cliff. No more MK Ultra continuations. No more open contracts for psychotronics. No more Stanford Research Institute.
All off a cliff. It's over. You don't get to know nothing. And then miraculously, in the last couple of years, I'd say it all of a sudden has popped up. All these people talking about it like they just discovered it. Meanwhile, the people who were suffering from these things or who are undergoing these things, or abductees or people like myself, who tried to tell their story and tried to get help, they get laughed at. But now all of a sudden, this is real. This is, and you think that they ain't manipulating reality? Let's come on, y'all. Let's just smile at that one, man. That's ooh. Let's go. Let's go. Let's.
Grants for consciousness alteration. The records didn't just stop, they vanished. And yet, that same year, classified budgets spiked across every intelligence agency. Black budget allocations ballooned. But for what? We don't know, because no one's talking. And here's where it gets weirder. By the early 1990s, the terminology inside classified projects shifted. We went from enemy influence to non-local consciousness, from foreign assets to non-human intelligences. Wait, what? You heard that right.
This how long they've been setting us up for it. How long they've been setting us up for it. Ain't it entertaining? How long they've been setting you up for it. This is a funny thing. Because these terms sound like they just came up with it. Look how long they've been getting ready to play this one on us. Because that's got to be a part of the simulation too, right? It definitely has to be a part of the simulation too, right? Because now they telling you aliens is coming to this planet in November. Like all of a sudden they believe in aliens. The cosmos is giant and gigantic, and they even experience 1% of it. Yet and still they can speak with enough confidence to tell you that that's not doing what an object in space and deep space would do. How do you know? You haven't marked every object out there. How do they know this? Right? I'm just saying this because look, this scientist dude who, if you do a little homework on, he's a shield, he's another plant. He's not even credible. He's not respected in his own community. But yet still, this guy's got all the broad daylight to talk all this craziness. Another guy, no publication. You got to watch these scientists with no publications, right? And when they put out some little paper, they don't spend their life scientifically researching and putting out publications to get the money. That's what real science do. I grew up around scientists. I know that's what they do. That's how they get money. That's how they do the science. Watch these people that just run their mouth because they not they should have their whole degree revoked.
US government started using terms like interdimensional and non-human actor in declassified briefings, but only after 1988. What if 1988 was the moment someone or something told them the game had changed? Think about it. That same year, Project Stargate, the military's remote viewing program, was quietly reassigned, compartmentalized, and made near impossible to track. Hundreds of CIA documents from the era were lost or redacted into oblivion. Even the DIA's psychic spy programs, once openly acknowledged, were swept under the rug. And don't forget what happened at NASA. 1988 was when the agency began scrubbing certain research arms. Whole lunar reconnaissance datasets vanished. Deep space monitoring programs were archived in a way no one can seem to unarchive. Why? Government secrecy had to be rewritten. Or did the intelligence community learn that reality itself could be manipulated? Because if 1988
This is why I try to teach the methods I teach and try to share and use them in my own personal life, because that's exactly what it was. I tried to share this before. I expressed it many times to people. They have hijacked reality. They understood. They did they spent trillions of dollars to understand this. They trillions of dollars to understand where's you getting all this energy to power the human body from? Beyond biology, where did this spark of energy even? How did this electro stimulus experience begin? Right? They cracked the code with another group of beings that gave them a code. And in that cracking of the code, they gave them a way to rewrite reality for their benefit. And that's what we're looking at. Believe it or not, I don't really care. It doesn't matter. The more I say this, the more people like this guy pops up with more and more proof. I'm telling you from my own personal experience of leaping through and being taken certain places that these things are real.
It was the year the curtain dropped. This was the moment they decided no one else would ever see what was behind it. And next, we go deeper. Because if the intel agencies weren't just hiding something, but working with it, then everything changes. So let's talk about the weird stuff. Not aliens, not quantum physics. Let's talk about what happened after 1988 that no one can explain, but somehow feels like it explains everything. Right around that year, there was a quiet little boom, not in tech, not in media, but in people trying to get everyone's minds in sync. Suddenly, all these coherence-based movements started popping up. Groups claiming they could sync human consciousness, create global harmony, raise the planet's vibration, all with meditation, mantras, or mental discipline. And on the surface, sounds beautiful. But the deeper you dig, the more this starts to feel like a rollout, not a movement, like someone or something was running an update on the software of human consciousness. Let's go there. The Global Consciousness Project out of Princeton pops up in the late 80s and early 90s, claiming random number generators around the world were reacting to global emotional events, like reality itself was syncing with collective thought. Meanwhile, the Maharishi.
They also used the random number generator it was also running this experiment during 9/11 as well, guys. That's a fact. And they found a coherent structure occurring. And they found out that, 9/11 was something that affected the world collectively because they aired it collectively around the world. It was the first time in our modern time that America had been attacked. So, by forces outside of America, that people that were not, Americans. So, the number generator thing is definitely real. They know they've been altering reality this whole time. You haven't asked yourself what is the purpose of this social media? See, it first was sold to us as a way to stay in contact with loved ones and things, but then it became something totally different, right? And we never asked ourselves, how are they making money? It took like a decade for anybody to ask, well, wait a minute, how the hell is Facebook, if none of us is paying for this, how is this guy making money? Right? Right. And it just so happens that DARPA had an exact same program they was going to roll out, but they just shut it all down out of nowhere. And then a year later, Facebook popped up. This guy, once again, I'm like, it doesn't matter the story, the cover story they created for it. It's real. You can look this up. All that is a cover story. And it don't even matter to them a lot of times that the cover story get told because it's not blown. They've already laid too many pieces in the story. That's how they write the simulation. It's through the stories. Right? I was watching this video on Eddie Murphy, the life of Eddie Murphy. Not like he's gone or anything, but they was just talking about his career. And there's this one point where I guess it was when Delirious came out or whatever, or something along that line. He was being attacked by the gay community, or they were not attacked. Excuse me. That's a wildly incorrect statement to make. There was attention and there was protesting about the gay community, and it was all on the news. And how is this affecting the gay community? Do you think you need to? And he made a public statement, apologize to the gay community. So let me ask you something. What are they talking about? That was in the 80s. They was talking about gay rights and how it's not right to make fun of them and stuff. He's like, I'm just a comedian. I wasn't just jabbing at them. I was, genuinely, intentionally just being funny. And I'm apologizing if I've offended anybody, And I'm not like that. He did a whole thing and came out, and not gay or anything, but came out and apologized. And you know what I'm saying? So like they forced him to apologize. That was in the 80s. So I don't even understand what nobody's talking about right now. It's like there's this story of history that's being told, and people are acting emotional about it like it was real, and it wasn't. It didn't happen that way. A lot of things just didn't happen that way. They didn't just bring us over here on a boat. That's ridiculous. That's crazy talk. It's really insane if you think about it. You have to understand that that story is fueled by belief, because any rational mind who did any history or just studied that period in time at all could tell you the gyros and and not even just that, the fact that they didn't have ships, and the fact that they had insurances for sailors because they would die at sea all the time. Like, this is crazy. Like, and bro, like when you really think about some of it, it's nonsensical. It's all driven by some story that we've cling to and somehow act like it's memory. Like being like we black. Like I could tell you, like black. I remember. I don't know when we became African Americans, because I remember growing up as a kid. One of the most insulting things you could say to another kid is call them an African booty scratcher. Like that was an insult. I don't remember being taught. I remember roots at one point, and that was like, what? And it made me so mad, because I'm like, this can't be, what are you trying to say? Like, this is insane. None of it ever made sense to me. And anybody do the background on me will tell you in a heartbeat, like, no, I've never agreed with any of that. That's always been insane to me. And it feels like I've always been a man out of time. And just analyzing this video has been really great, because it's like people are seeing that something is not right. And the answers we're being given are not answers, they're distractions. Right? And something's not right with this. This is not making sense. Right? I know plenty of people now, and I have family on the East Coast, and these are people that always did certain things a certain way. And they like, yo, I don't do that no more. I don't know. It's not right. Something's off with it. I don't feel like it. I don't want to shop no more. I don't want to buy clothes like that. I even took some stuff back I bought. I felt I didn't want it. Wow. Yeah, it's meaningless. Because it is all meaningless now. Notice the clothes is all meaningless. I don't know. Listen, everybody's trying to hype you up into something, and it's like, why? Right? Rappers that I'm basically seeing don't even respect their fans. They talk to people like trash. If you listen to the lyrics, right, and you allow yourself to absorb that and to suspend your disbelief, you begin to fill your head with some very, very negative perceptions of reality. And then as soon as something goes wrong, you don't realize it starts being conflated with the record, right? And if you really want to know why so many people are getting pew-pewed in this game, It's because of the affirmations they give themselves. You can't sit around and listen to, you're gonna die. You're going to get whammed. You're gonna, you can't do that all the time and not run into life experiences that put you into that energetic and emotional state. And if you're in an environment that can support that, then it's so much easier for you to actually experience that. You wake up in the morning and the first thing you want to hear is somebody getting, over the top with it, then there's your problem. They know this. That's why it's not these rapper dudes for. It's not. I don't blame them. I don't blame them at all. Oh, you should know. They're brainwashed. You gonna listen. We gotta stop giving the pass to the trillions of dollars that was spent on conditioning us psychologically. You gotta stop giving it a pass. You have to. You have to stop giving this a pass. We have to stop giving it a pass. Right? You want to put it off on them all the time. And it's like, it's not on them. Okay? It's not on them. If the thing to do was to make records that uplifted and made mathematicians and made people smarter and made them feel good and kept them in a better state of mind, and they got paid for it, then you know what you would be producing? You would be producing people like that. But you're not. Right? I mean, you got to look at who's paying for this. These guys ain't making themselves no more. Drugs, don't even give me that drug stuff. That stuff is dead, bro. You can't be serious. Right? I'm on the mindset right now, if you selling drugs on a real scale, you're a fed. How in the world can you do that when everything is monitored and the police and the feds and the government has access to everybody's stuff? Every corner, every traffic light, your smart TV in your house. Every trap house got one of those. They can see through your walls. They got X-ray for your walls now. They can drive right there. They don't even have to. It could be 2 blocks over. Boop, 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 boop. Right in your house. See everything. X-ray, man. Look like Running Man. They on all your Instagrams, all your Facebooks, all of them. You say something wrong on the internet, they knocking at your door, yo. They redlined us out of existence. Then when they talk about, oh, the schools get the same, they don't play the school, get the same money. They don't get the same money. They don't get the same books. First of all, those rich schools are rich because rich people invest in the schools. You poor, so you don't invest in your school. They get their money based off of special education. So it's in their best interest to say your kid is stupid. And now it's all standardized testing. So teachers ain't teaching nothing. They start teaching, they get fired. So let's get back to the video, because I'm telling you right now, y'all not hearing, but I think you're hearing. We're going to see when this video catch traction.
Effect, named after the guy who taught the Beatles transcendental meditation, was being pushed in cities and schools, claiming that large groups meditating together could reduce crime, lower aggression, and even influence physical systems. It was getting funding. It was being studied quietly. And then there's the Silva method, a mind control training course developed in the 60s, but it exploded in popularity after 19.
I had to stop it because he said the Silva method. This is, come listen, hit me up in the chat after this video goes up. After this live, you see this video, you hear this, hit me up. I'll help you learn the Silva method. I'll show you what to do. I'll give you everything you need to get started. It's powerful. I'm telling you, People think I'm psychic. I don't like to say I'm psychic. I'm not psychic. That's not how I look at it. I'm not any of the way they define anything, but I do understand that this is a collective, connected field, and you can tune into the connected field all around you, and I can show you how to do that. And it's not about getting rich overnight or anything. It's really about being able to be in control of this. And when you start getting control of this, you start getting control of what you experience in here and how you feel about it, everything. And you get to wake up. And once you wake up, you never get to go back to sleep. That's not true no more. People just say, oh, you go back to sleep. You cannot go back to sleep once you wake up. Because once you know that this is not real, that this is an illusion, right? The greatest illusion, because it seems real, that's what makes it the greatest illusion. The greatest illusion is the illusion that seems real. And if it seems real, that means you think it's real. That's right, puppy. That's my little baby girl, Zena Bear. Come here, Zena. Let's see if she actually come over here. Come here. Come here, Bobby. Oh, she's coming. Come here, baby. Baby. Come here, Zena. Ah, here she goes. Come here, Bobby Bear. Oh, say hello to my audience. Hello, say hello, Bobby. Hey. This is my best buddy right here. This is my little girl, Zena Bear. And yeah, she was just making some noise, so I was just gonna let her say hello to the world. Say hello. Yes. Oh, there you go. Yeah, but let's get back into this because, man, it's easy. So many
1988. Their claim? You could reprogram your mind through directed visualization and enter altered states of reality. Sound familiar? It should. It's the same tech used in Project Stargate, MK Ultra, and psychological warfare programs that tried to weaponize the mind. But suddenly, it wasn't just military anymore. It was going mainstream. See, that's the part that hits me hardest, because it wasn't just self-help or fringe meditation techniques. It was happening everywhere. Global synchronized meditations, children's programming with hidden mantras, corporations pushing mindfulness apps disguised as productivity tools. Even tech developers started talking about flow states, attention steering, and neural design. It's like the whole world got nudged into the same frequency on purpose. And here's where it gets darker. Because while the good vibes movements was exploding, so was something else. Cults. We're talking Heaven's Gate, Aum Shinrikyo, the Order of the Solar Temple, all gaining traction in the same exact years, 92 to 97. And what did they all have in common? Cosmic awakening, higher density beings, spiritual transmissions. The simulation is breaking. These weren't just doomsday groups. They were trying to hack consciousness, to breach reality. And that's when I realized, maybe they weren't the fringe. Maybe they were the beta testers. Let me throw this out there. What if after 1988, the world didn't just reboot physically, but mentally? What if someone realized that the best way to keep humanity asleep wasn't censorship, it was ritual? Teach people to meditate, not to awaken, but to suppress. Use mantras, not to liberate, but to rewrite internal code. Make the programming feel like spiritual progress, so no one ever questions it. And if that sounds insane,
that's what they use hip hop for. Hip hop and music industry, pop, not pop, because pop is just popular music. That could be R&B, that could be country, that could be many things. But the popular music and hip hop, rock, alternative, transit, house music, all of this stuff, reggae, all of it. All of this stuff is affirmational music and hypnosis. This music is transcendental hypnosis. Why? Because it plays a beat over and over and over again. It has very little movements. If you go listen to a classical piece, it doesn't repeat itself over and over. It has movements where it will change pace, tempo, cadence, everything switches, notes, everything, right? And it tells a story. The whole piece is like a piece of art or story, right? We condensed it down, and they condensed it down into a very short form of content, which is very repetitive, right? Which is normally 4 bars, right? Our beat is like boom, boom, black, boom, boom. Oh, excuse me, that's terrible. Doom, doom, da, doom, 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 da, doom, doom, doom. You see the repeat, boom, bam, boom, 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 bam, and then doom, 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 and it's just repeat. It repeats, and then the chorus. And now it used to be a bunch of lyrics. Lyricists used to say a lot, which was give you this visualization. You really went places with them when they had all these lyrics. Then it got short, right? And it became like, it went from probably something like 500 words, maybe even more sometimes, to 30, 50, 60 words in the whole song. Like, that's it. 25 words. That's it in the whole record. This is hypnotic. And you repeat it over and over and over. They repeat it over and over and over and over again. And then you catch a vibe. You call it a vibe. It makes you feel a certain way, which is the language of the subconscious mind. It's not just your English words. It's your feelings to things. And that tells you want it, you like it, and then it activates a particular activated system. Now, depending on your environment, your upbringing, and the parts of your belief systems will infallibly affect how that experience, how it's going to translate into an experience for you. If you're in an environment where there is where there's poverty, where there is hardship, where there is crime and things of this nature, and you start listening to that, yes, it's very possible that you're going to get shot. It's very possible that you're going to run into certain things because you are listening to something and catching a feeling of it, programming it into your own internal belief systems, and then you're going outside and your reticular activating system is saying, this is what you want to see, this is what you want to experience, so I'm going to filter all the other stuff out, and it's going to show you that. They are aware of this. Right? And I just wanted to share that because, man, when he said the silver, and some of the silver stuff he mentioned, that's not an actual representation of the silver method. It doesn't talk about getting into altered states of reality. It has nothing to do with that. Actually, not to my knowledge. What he's saying, what he's actually talking about is the gateway process, or the Monroe Institute gateway tapes. And the gateway took heavily from the silver method. He took and studied various methods, and that's how he came up with that. But one of the main methods, and that's why anybody who I've done it, if you've done the gateway process, it always begins with the 3-2-1 method. That's directly from the silver. That's something he created. That's his own thing. If you do the research and homework on that, you'll understand that. But what he was saying about that, with that, he was conflating it because one of the primary sources that is used from there, along with neurolinguistic programming, a lot of neurolinguistic programming is involved in that, right? But the silver method is more of hypnosis. The 3-2-1, because first of all, the 3-2-1 process goes like this. You have a countdown. Each number represents a state. So when if I tell you to close your eyes and take a deep breath, and as you breathe out, mentally visualize and repeat to yourself the number three times. So you would close your eyes, you would visualize the number 3 times as you breathe out, right? And then we would go through a process in that state. I would tell you number 3 is for relaxation. Whenever you repeat the number 3 to yourself 3 times as you take a deep breath and exhale, right, you will enter back into this state. To assure that, we're going to program you for this state. And then we will walk through the thing of relaxing the top of your head. You might feel a warm sensation, a warm tingle or vibration. right? As you relax your scalp. And then you just go down and relax each part of the person's body. And once they reach the last part of your body, right, then you let them know that they programmed for level 3. Now we're going to go to level 2. Then you tell them to do the same thing with level 2. But level 2 is for mental relaxation and focus, right? This is so that noises and things around you won't distract you. In fact, they'll bring you greater focus and attention to whatever you're doing. So each one of these, you have this thing. So by the time you get to level 1 is a basic level, a general level for any purpose that you see fit. And that's where you could put affirmations in. This is where you start the process of certain activities you could do with the mind for problem solving, like the magic, like the frame. Like, so you would imagine a frame on the right, close your eyes, you would look up 20 degrees, and you would see a frame in blue to the right side in your mind. Imagine a blue frame, however you want it, how it would look, right? And in the middle of that blue frame, you're supposed to put all of your issues, your problems. So whatever the problem may be, you want to visualize it inside this blue frame. Then once you've done that, you're going to erase that in your mind, right? Then you're going to move that blue frame over to the left side of your mind. You're going to turn that blue frame white. And then you're going to visualize solutions and what it would be like for you to have the right answer. And then you take that white frame and move it to the middle. Imagine a golden light. And that's brings that solution up into the golden light. And and that kind of stuff actually does work. They know it works. They know it works so much that they spent billions of dollars researching it. Tell them, Zena. Billions of dollars researching it. So let's get back into the video. My goodness, he's on fire right now. Some of this stuff he's saying, bro, you killing it. I'm with you, but you gotta go a little harder on some of this stuff when you. Well, no, you don't. Actually, I don't want to critique anything he's saying on that level. I'm enjoying the video. I hope you are too. Let's get back to it.
Then ask yourself, why did government agencies run decades of experiments trying to do the exact same thing? Why do declassified MKUltra documents describe ego breakdown, behavioral reconditioning, and guided dissociation, all through ritual, sound, and repetitive stimuli? And why does almost every single one of those documents stop cold after the late 1980s? Because maybe it didn't stop. Maybe it just got outsourced, rebranded, commercialized, mainstreamed, and maybe you've already been programmed. All right, let's slow this down for a second. You've just been dragged through geopolitical resets, electromagnetic shifts, cult infiltration, government blackouts, digital gods, and full-blown memory wars. You're probably sitting there thinking, okay, but how much of this is actually real? Well, let's be honest. That's the only question that matters. And the only honest answer is this: that depends on what you mean by real. Because when you start connecting dots this big, dots that stretch across time, psychology, technology, and maybe even the code of the universe itself, things get slippery. Yes, we showed you facts. The Schumann resonance is rising. The USSR did collapse with barely a shot. Missing 411 is statistically verifiable. DARPA did pivot into cognitive warfare. DNA is acting weirder than it used to. MKUltra did disappear from documentation after the 80s. None of that's theory. It's archived, peer-reviewed, declassified. But here's the kicker. None of it proves reality was reset. Correlation doesn't equal causation until it happens this many times in a row. And that's the thing, man. You can explain away any of this stuff if you try hard enough, if you cherry pick data, if you tell yourself, there's no way this could be coordinated. And maybe that's true. But you know what scares me more than believing this is real? Believing it isn't, and still feeling like something's wrong. Because here's where things get really uncomfortable. Even if none of this was intentional, even if the 1988 reset wasn't a literal patch update to reality, what's the alternative? that this all just happened? That the internet, mass distraction, memory glitches, black site vanishings, AI, cults, DNA anomalies, electronic magnetic shifts, and 1,000 microfractures in our shared experience just randomly lined up after a single year in history? Okay. Let's say it's all a coincidence. Well, let's go there. But then explain this. Why do people born after 1988 feel different? Why does the generational gap feel like a timeline rupture, not just a cultural shift? Why is it that people keep describing the same dreamlike memory of how things used to feel, but can't name what changed? Why do more people than ever say they don't trust time anymore, like something broke and never got fixed? And why are the people who remember things differently being told they're crazy? That's not conspiracy. That's gaslighting on a global scale. They're protecting it from us, from you right now watching this video, starting to realize that maybe you were never meant to pull this many threads. Maybe this system isn't designed to reveal itself. And yet, here you are, still asking the question, is any of this real? So let's answer it. It's all real.
Yo, the people that's trying to gaslight us, they are NPCs. They have no idea that they don't feel any of this. They don't feel any of it. They don't have a clue what's going on. They actually think the events in the world are real. They're convinced that it's real. Because that's what they're programmed to believe. If they didn't believe it and we all experienced this together, then you know what would happen? The whole thing would break. And then they wouldn't have their prisoners anymore. That's what would happen.
Or none of it is. The truth, it doesn't actually matter. Because what matters now is that you saw it. You can't unsee this. And the next time your memories don't line up, the next time reality feels off by half a frame, the next time you see someone glitch in the wild, you'll remember this moment and you'll wonder if you ever really left 1988 at all. We've traced the fracture lines, the economic weirdness, the memory glitches, the data purges, the AI infiltration, the surveillance nets tightening, the rituals getting louder and sloppier. And now we're left with one question. What actually happened in 1988? Was it the beginning of the end, or just the end of a beginning we never understood? Because the more you dig, the less 1988 looks like a spontaneous shift and more like a planned upload, a controlled reboot, a recalibration of something much bigger than government, culture, or physics. But here's a twist nobody saw coming. What if 1988 wasn't the first time? What if we've done this before, over and over, across ages, across versions, rewritten timelines, scrubbed memories, redacted realities? Because every few decades, things get too unstable, too many anomalies, too many questions, too many people noticing. And when that happens, the system pushes a patch, silently, surgically, permanently. What if you've lived through this more than once? What if that's why you can't shake the feeling that something's wrong, but you can't name it? What if deja vu isn't a glitch, it's a scar, a leftover echo from a version of you that lived through a different draft of this world, a different run? And what if we're nearing the next one? Think about the signs. Memory collapse is now a meme. The past is constantly shifting. Facts aren't facts anymore. And the most powerful systems on Earth are fighting not to fix reality, but to control how you remember it. That's not stability, that's preparation. You feel it, everyone does. Something is lining up, coalescing. The frequency is getting louder, the parameters are bending, and somewhere deep in the machine, another patch is getting ready. Maybe this one will be smoother. Maybe this one will finally overwrite the anomalies. Maybe you won't even notice. Or maybe this time the system crashes completely. Either way, now you know. You were never supposed to notice the update, but you did. And now we see them too. All right, you made it to the end, which means either you're deeply curious or you've already lived through a few resets yourself. I'm Ralph, and this has been another high voltage descent into the subterranean.
Damn. That was wild. That was wild. Yeah, I hope y'all really enjoyed that. That was something else, man. That was something else. I mean, I am looking for something. That was unbelievable, man. I mean, this is what I'm talking about. Like, no matter how you flip this, you know, there is some really bizarre stuff happening when it comes to a lot of this stuff. So, and the funny thing is, like, if the internet is dead and these people, let's just say these people ain't even real. I'm not saying this guy's not real. I don't know. Because at this point, how can you know who's real unless you go to their house or meet them somewhere and physically interact with them, right? But there's this trend right now of this kind of stuff, man. And people noticing that things ain't right. So we're going to check out one more and then talk about, I'm going to call it a night. And then tomorrow we coming right back. We're going to also do a little review again. And we may get to the Fantastic Four review. I want to talk about that because, wow, we got a lot to say about that. But tomorrow it looks like I'm gonna do a review on these two movies I seen. I saw Weapons. I mean, I seen some people's reviews, and I want to talk about the confusion that I'm having, and the movie Together, which was nowhere near the quality or setup of the substance. But we'll talk about that tomorrow. But this video we're gonna watch right now is about Stuck in 1999 and how after 1999. So whatever the update he talking about is definitely true. But also in this, there's some truth to this because it's like, you're gonna see what I'm talking about. We can all agree that ain't nothing new really coming out, not even when it comes to fashion. And even with the way style has come along and how galas have come along and how, like, bro, the fashion is what happened. I don't know. I do know. We're getting ready to meet another race of beings, and we're gonna finally, that's neither here nor there. But I'm gonna share this video with y'all. Let me mute my mic so you can go.
Distinct style of what the culture was like, with very specific fashion, TV shows, music, design, and everything else. But after 1999, that all stopped. You could look at a TV show from 2005 or 2025, and how the people act and dress and design their spaces pretty much stayed the same. At least, that's the strange thought-provoking theory people are starting to talk about. And I can tell you, I was there. The 80s and the 90s were so distinctly different from each other, and we could see looking back at how different each decade was from the 50s through to the 90s. We were fully aware. That's why Back to the Future was such a fantastic movie. The nostalgia from the 50s was palpable. But the questions I keep coming back to are, why have the decades since 2000 seemed relatively the same? Are we stuck in a time warp? Has culture ground to a halt on purpose? I decided to collect all the evidence I could find of this bizarre Matrix-style time freeze and see if we can figure out what's actually going on. Is it just a pile of technological and social issues creating this, or is there evidence of other theories? Let's go through all of them. Join me, investigative researcher Rob Counts, for a metaphysical show that's out of this world.
You believe it's the year 1999, when in fact it's closer to 2199. I can't tell you exactly what year it is, because we honestly don't know.
I can't tell you what year it is either. And if you think about it, we're sort of existing in the Matrix time warp concept now. And it gets even weirder if you start looking at people's appearances. Now, I know what you're gonna say. How could things be the same in all the years since 2000? Look at all the massive advancements in computers and technology. I mean, sure, I get it. It's not that nothing has changed. We're talking about cultural distinctions between our decades. But the craziest of all for me of this Matrix time warp was one example I saw on social media. If you watch The Office, which I do, and it's consistently ranked as one of the most popular shows of all time, all of what they're wearing and how their hair is styled and everything looks just like today. You could not guess the year any episode was filmed if you didn't already know, because it literally could be any year beginning with a 2.
They're the same picture.
The Office actually ran from 2005 to 2013, so it should be decades out of date. But teenagers today have a more extreme version of Jim's hair in season 1. They have a fluffy mop or semi-perm of broccoli hair now, or some in Gen Z have a partial comeback of 90s hair. Where did the distinct decade styles go? Fashion seems to be stuck in this limbo land without anything truly new coming onto the scene, and all kinds of duplicates or copies of the past are coming forward. Just think about all these decade styles. They were so distinct. Greasy Elvis and James Dean hair came from men in the 50s, and Marilyn Monroe and Audrey. Things got strange. The 2000s never really found itself. It was just a mashup of every style from past decades. Both wide and skinny jeans, sportswear, tight clothes, baggy clothes, hair of every length. I mean, just go into the mall today and you won't find one decade's fashion, you'll see them all. And we've been post-1999 for 25 years. But it's not just fashion, of course. That's just the most obvious because we look at people all the time. Have you noticed that Hollywood doesn't seem to be able to produce a unique script anymore? At least not for our movies. All our movies seem to be remakes of the past creative stuff that came out of the last century, and specifically the late 70s through the 80s and 90s. Take a look at this list of remakes I curated from a much larger...
All they do is give us remakes because they got to keep us. Remember, movies is how they upload the simulation into us. This is what they use now. Ever since, especially since they gone digital, it's become even more prominent than ever before. That's what they use, right? But let's just look at the list of movies to just show you how they've been keeping us in a loop. Let's just go ahead and check that out.
Larger list on IMDb. Total Recall, RoboCop, Point Break, Footloose, The Karate Kid, War of the Worlds, The Day the Earth Stood Still, Hairspray, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Cinderella, King Kong, Clash of the Titans, Carrie, Planet of the Apes, and I hardly brought up any of the horror movies they've remade. That list is huge. Have people gotten lazy, or could something else be going on? In ancient Greek culture, they talked about muses. It was the muses who imparted to people their inspiration for creativity. All creativity came from them. When people had a creative block, they used to say that they'd lost touch with their muses, or that the muses had stopped taking care of them. Muses were held in extremely high esteem. What, did the muses stop taking care of people after 1999? Could we somehow be unable to create original stories anymore? And if so, why? Speaking of movies, I was watching The Matrix recently, and something jumped out at me that I hadn't ever thought about before. Why did the AI program controlling The Matrix claim that 1999 was the peak of human civilization?
The Matrix was redesigned to this, the peak of your civilization.
In the movie, 1999 was the point when humans had just enough material benefits to strive for, and just enough misery to keep them occupied that they didn't question their reality. Well, when I looked at our own reality, I realized that he was kind of right. Now, no matter what examples we find, people are just going to try to explain this away, but honestly, there's just no fun in that. If we are stuck in this weird time loop, what could have caused it? Let's go into some theories. Nostradamus predicted that in the 7th month of 1999, a great king of terror would descend on the world. Nostradamus said a lot of things, and I'm not really sure I buy the world ending is what he meant by that. But what is weird is that in late June of 1999, the comet Hale-Bopp was in the sky. Some theories suggest that the comet really hit the Earth back then. But if that were the case, why are we all still here? It would have been devastating to the point of destroying all of civilization. It's said that when you die, your brain lives on for 7 minutes, replaying your memories or living out new ones in a dreamlike state. And in dreams, as we know, time moves differently from when we're awake. Many people who have had near-death experiences have explained what it's like to have their life flash before their eyes. So what if we're living in the interdimensional spaces of our brains after we've already died? 7 minutes could feel like an eternity. According to The Matrix, the world ended in 1999. AI took us over and the sky was scorched. Believe it or not, some people really believe that we're living in an artificial projection and that AI really did take us over, which, looking at the fashion industry right now, that could be true. The holographic universe theory states that our three-dimensional universe is a two-dimensional projection on a cosmic scale. Basically, we're living in a massive cosmic hologram, and everything we perceive as being 3D is really just an illusion. What's weird is that there might be some truth to this. Now, every planet gives off a frequency, a vibration, and a sound. We know there are connections between objects in the cosmos, and that it gives our reality stability, like the push and pull between particles. That's not weird. But what if those elements of our solar system actually operate like transmission towers that keep our reality the way it is, like projection?
Every month, this Airbnb pays me about $2,700 in semi-passive income. Now, here's the thing. I don't
like projection points in a matrix. If we're talking about being stuck in a matrix time warp, we can go even further. Some believe Saturn is giving off these frequencies that are being transmitted to objects like the moon and the Earth.
See, Saturn is considered the cube. They say a lot of all of this comes from Saturn. What did they mean? Their ideal of literal and contextual may have been very different when they made that statement. That's a translation. It's getting closer to the truth. This is why they have to tell us that they exist. Of course, it's a hologram. Your eyes don't see, your ears don't hear. None of that's actually happening. Your eyes are just taking in light, processing it through rods and chromes, and that's getting shot through your brain. And then something inside of there is making sense of that, then flipped it in every direction, every possible variation, and it gave you this, because this is what you wanted to see. Make sure you subscribe to Metaphysical. Also, this guy's got a really great way of looking at this, but it's still from the perspective of being someone who's never seen any of this. And I really don't care what people think. I'm not really focused on what people think anymore. I have had a calling to go ahead and speak on certain things, and I'm going to speak on it. You're going to discover that outer space is an electric plasmic ocean. I know because I've been out there. I've seen it. I experienced it. The orbs took me. They gave me 2 messages on that journey. The first message they said was, the key to all your suffering is your identity. Let your identity go. And it took me down to the planet, like this planet of just water. We went into the water and I was scared. I drowned before. I was panicking. And I looked over at the light, the boiler light, and it was like, it said, the way to heaven is through the water. We went through a tunnel of light, and I ended in my body, and my wife told me I hadn't been breathing. You know, people might try to, no, what I saw, I couldn't describe. So no, it didn't come from some near-death experience of putting some things together of what I know. This was almost indescribable. But let's get back to what he's talking, because this is, once again, this is connected to the 1999, 1988. Notice these times here, you know, and what happened in this time period. Very profound things happened that shifted us to where we are now. A lot of this feels very instant because what came from it was like turned on like a light switch one day, and we was in it. But there were steps that was taken to assure that when they flipped that switch, the light would come on.
And that creates some type of projection. Well, in mythology, Saturn is the god of time and another name for Kronos, so maybe time really is different now. The scientist Stephen Hawking once warned that when we find the God particle, it could one day be responsible for the destruction of the entire universe. And Hawking was not the only scientist who thought so. Their theory was that the Higgs boson is the precise mass needed to keep the universe on the brink of instability. But its delicate state will eventually collapse, leaving the universe unstable. In fact, if this God particle were real, it could usher in a quantum doomsday. On July 4th, 2012, the God particle, also known as the Higgs boson, was found. What if the discovery of this particle indeed destroyed the universe as we know it, or at the very least changed it? Did you know that the most advanced calendar of the ancient world was the Maya calendar? This calendar only recorded up until December 21st, 2012, the same year the God particle was found. What if? Well, it doesn't seem like the world ended in 2012, or did it? Because something strange is definitely going on. In 2013, Nelson Mandela died, but a bizarrely huge number of people remember him dying years earlier in the 90s. I'm one of those people. On December 5th, 2013, I was designing the front page of a newspaper in New York City where I used to work. As I laid it out, I remembered leaning over to an editor and saying, "Didn't this guy die already?" Now, if it were just one event, you could easily write it off as people not remembering what happened. But this was the first of so many glitches in the Matrix. I'll list a few here.
Oh, déjà vu.
In the movie Snow White, the evil stepmother gazes into the mirror. Remember what she says? Mirror, mirror on the wall, right? Nope, now it's magic mirror on the wall. Literally, no one remembers magic mirror. Then Sinbad was never in a movie that everyone, including me, remembers coming out in the 90s called Shazam. Shaq was even in a knockoff remake called Kazam. Shazam doesn't exist, but Kazam still does. No one can figure it out. Ed McMahon never worked for Publishers Clearinghouse and gave people giant checks. There's even footage of Johnny Carson talking about Ed doing this, but it officially never happened, and he never worked.
There's no way. You can't. The funniest thing is like how you don't. If that's like if that's a psyop, that's the ultimate gaslighting. There's no way you can tell me Ed McMahon. It's the only way I know Ed McMahon. I don't know him from Johnny Carson like that. I know Ed McMahon from Publishing Clearinghouse. Like so many people that I was like, he never was a part of that. Never happened. That never. You guys are tripping. That never happened. Now the thing is, it wouldn't be bizarre if we all agreed, because then we would know something's happening. But to actually have people that say, no, he wasn't. I don't ever remember him ever being that guy. He never was. That's what makes it bizarre. You have to realize something's going on. I mean, at what point are you just going to be like, something's going on? Like, really? Are you really going to just keep acting like nothing's happening? Really? I'm just saying, like, Does your job mean that much to you? That you be willing to just ignore reality completely? I don't know. This is okay. Let's keep going.
Worked there. I can't figure that out either. I remember my entire childhood seeing that guy holding up checks in commercials all the time between my cartoons. C-3PO now has a silver leg in the Star Wars movie. The weird part, my action figure when I was a kid didn't have that, and no one can remember this in the movie. But when you go back and check the old VHS tapes and laserdiscs, the silver leg is indeed there. These mysterious examples have led people to speculate that something really did happen in 2012, and we're living in a different timeline. Why the universe would choose something so close but with these minor differences in details, I can't answer. But instead of it being evidence the world ended and we're stuck in a time warp, perhaps it's evidence we were saved. And this was as close as we could get to the original timeline. One final theory on why we've been living in weirdness for the last 25 years, where everything seems to be staying the same, could be that technology is collapsing time. Now, follow me on this one. The theory is that as technology develops, the speed of advancements also increases until eventually it advances at such an exponential rate that the speed becomes infinite, like an infinite loop. Now, Moore's law is one similar example because starting in the 60s, the number of components in integrated circuits were doubling every year. Moore predicted that if the pattern continued, the rate of growth of these semiconductors would become enormous, which it did as the semiconductor industry took this as a challenge. With artificial intelligence being created now and man really merging more and more with machine, this exponential improvement rate of tech has already started. In the time since 1999, in real life, we've been stuck in the same kind of minimally changing culture, except for changes driven by technology. We interact less, socialize less, trends come and go much quicker, and time progression is harder to mark because there are fewer tangible things to mark that time with. Let me give you an example. I saw a comment on YouTube from someone who said they were able to mark the time in the 2000s by when they were married and when their children were born. And I agree, families are a huge marker of time progression, as are major events like weddings, births, deaths, and high school graduation. But whereas in the past, people were going out to participate in more weekly activities, physically doing more things, today there's even less movement and activity. Fewer people go to the mall and even to the grocery store. Teenage trips to the movies, mini golf, or loitering around happen less often than everyone interacting on the phone. Now, this is not criticism of our current reality. In fact, I think there may be some benefits to this limbo land, time warp, matrix reality we seem to be stuck in. We've got so much more of a chance to make choices that change things. Some people think this is super depressing, that we're not creative anymore, we're relying on AI instead of originality, and things are increasingly gray. But it also seems like the past 2.5 decades have actually been like one larger time period the way one decade was in the past. And as more people become interested in innovation again, things are going to change rapidly. The people breaking out of the matrix and seeing that there's something more to reality happens every day. Just check out the comments on my Dreams Are Real episode, it's going to blow your mind. Now, some people may argue that in the past, the decades weren't really that distinct. I've heard that the 80s was just inspired by the 60s, and the 90s were just a redo of the 70s, as our parents' styles came back around in their own kids' youth. But I think you really gotta see the obvious differences in style here. I mean, I was there. No, the 80s was very unique, and the 90s was too. The 90s grunge look came from Seattle, and I have to say, part of the skateboarding culture. While the 70s style was a reaction to an anti-war movement, the 60s hippie time period had color and go-go boots, sure, but that's totally different from the neon fluorescence and insanely big hair of my 80s childhood. You cannot say those were the same. But why are trains a little faster now, cars a little less varied, and planes haven't really improved at all in decades? In decades, while targeted ads on our phones are so good, they seem to be able to read our minds. Are we really stuck in a matrix time warp? What are we going to do with this extra time? And what will the world look like in another 10 or 50 years? Leave me a comment with what you guys think, because
You see? And there it is, right? And I'm gonna tell you what I'm gonna tell you like this. right? When he's talking about how the matrix, or if this is a matrix, or if we, how do we, that this is, maybe it's not such a bad thing. It's like, it's very obvious to me, right, that it's not a loop. We didn't get, or a loop like he's expressing it. We didn't just get blown up and we all just dying in our minds. That this is an active thing. If it's a matrix, then you're an eternal being that they've made, that something has got its hand, manipulated into its service. But what do you think about that video? How did you feel? I like to know what people really felt about that and what you think about that, because for me, it was like, wow, yeah, you could definitely see the patterns of how everything stopped. You see how everything has been recycling itself. And, you look at your cell phone, you look at what they call it, the 6G, 5G, Internet of Things, all this. But when you look at our cars, you look at our transportation, you look at certain industries, there's no real growth there. Like, cars don't utilize gas better. They don't. Right? Still driving cars, And another thing about the AI, he was mentioning about how, it's draining all our we're not creative, the AI. It's like, well, the AI ain't teaching itself. Well, it's teaching itself, but it's not creating what it's learning. It's doing it from us. It's absorbing our creativity and regurgitating it. It can't regurgitate something that isn't there. It can't absorb something that isn't there. So obviously the creativity is there, but it's been what creativity we get exposed to. But this has been a really powerful stream. I'm gonna end it here, and I'll be back tomorrow or later today, and we could pick back up. And I'm gonna come with a couple other things. I want to thank you for joining me. Appreciate it. Please leave a like and a comment so we can get the algorithm to pick this up. And like I said, please check out my book, Shatterpoint, Beyond the Veil Shatterpoint. It's on Amazon. It's not just wonderful. It is everything we be talking about. And I put it into the form of story, and from my own experiences and other things that I've been attributed to, and I've taken that and I've created a great world out of that. And I got 2 more books coming behind it and a prequel. If you hit me up in the comment section, I will reach out to you and I will get you a copy of the prequel for free. So thank you for joining me again. I had a great time, and I look forward to seeing you first thing tomorrow. Hey, have a wonderful, wonderful evening. And always remember, whenever you go looking for the truth outside of yourself, truth gets further and further away.